On the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, my daughter sent a text that landed with the cheerful certainty of a reminder I hadn't agreed to. "Mom, can you grab the big turkey again? 18 to 20 pounds? And the pies? And wine? We'll handle the vibe. Love you." My name is Elaine Mercer. I'm 69 and retired from the public library. I live in a small house with a porch that complains when you sit down on cold mornings. I have a daughter I love, a son-in-law who tries hard in ways that don't always land, and 2 grandchildren who smell like crayons and dryer sheets. I also have the habit of telling myself I can sort out any feeling if I write it down. The first big holiday after my husband, Tom, died, my daughter Shannon said, "Let's do it big this year. We need it." She meant well. I did the tree, the expensive roast, the candles that promised fir trees and delivered perfume, and the dessert that came in a box with a ribbon I still have in a drawer. Everyone smiled in the forced way people smile when they're trying to keep grief from taking a chair. In January, the bill arrived. I pressed my finger over the total until the paper warmed and told myself it was a one-time thing. "We needed it," I said out loud to the empty kitchen, as if the house were the one asking. Before we continue, tap subscribe and tell us where you're listening from in the comments. Then Easter came, and the 4th of July, and a graduation party for a cousin. "We'll just put it on your card," Shannon would say. "You get points." Her husband, Brent, liked to promise repayment as if speed could crawl through a phone. "Venmo you as soon as it posts," he'd text. It never posted. The reason shifted with the season loans, the kitchen remodel, the market, soccer fees, just a tight month. I am not naive, but I am gentle to a fault, and the easiest person to take advantage of is the one who is convinced it isn't happening. Last Thanksgiving, I bought the bird that takes 2 hands to lift. I bought butter that comes wrapped like jewelry. I bought the brine kit that makes you feel competent before you even open it, and the wine that comes with lectures about tannins. I also bought folding chairs because more people than we thought is a tradition in this family. Near midnight, my phone pinged with a charge from a liquor store near their house. A minute later, Brent texted, "Got extra champagne for mimosas. TX." That was the word he liked. It's a tidy little lid for a bigger pot. In January, my property tax notice came and sat heavy on the counter. I am not dramatic about money, but numbers have opinions when they add up, and I had to admit I didn't like theirs. I took the notebook I keep for ordinary things and added up 3 years of holidays. The total would have paid for a simple handrail on my back steps, a repair to the cracked walk, and a short week by a quiet beach where no one expects a centerpiece. I called Shannon that afternoon. I didn't practice. I used the voice I keep for dentist appointments and hard truths. "This year, we need to divide it," I said. "I'll bring a side and a dessert. You and Brent do the turkey and wine." Silence stretched so far I could hear a grocery store loudspeaker somewhere behind her. "But the kids expect your spread," she said finally. "It's our thing." "It's a habit," I said. "We can make a smaller one." She sighed in the way she does when she's trying to sound kind and steady me toward her plan. "We're still digging out. Think of it as a gift to the family." "I have," I said. "I'm changing what I give." She didn't love that sentence and didn't pretend to. "Okay, we'll figure it out." 10 minutes later, Brent texted to ask if he could borrow my warehouse club card and just put the big stuff on yours, and Venmo right after. I wrote back one word with a period. No. He sent a thumbs down and a joke about the Thanksgiving spirit. I put my phone face down and peeled apples for pie. On Thursday mornings, I help at the community center pantry. Ruth, who runs it, has the gift of listening without staring. I told her the whole thing while we labeled boxes. When I finished, she handed me a pen and said, "You already decided. Put it on paper and read it once. People can argue with you." It's harder to argue with a sentence. "What do I write?" I asked. "What you'll do and what you won't," she said, short and plain. So I went home, made tea, and wrote a short note in my own voice. I put it in a plain envelope and slid it next to the pies. I didn't feel brave. I felt like I'd finally fixed a tap that had been making noise for a long time. The night before, Shannon sent a photo of her table: eucalyptus, low candles, place cards. "We're keeping it elegant," she wrote. I told her it looked lovely, and it did. I also knew loveliness doesn't pay. In the late afternoon, she texted again. "We need extra chairs. Cousins can make it. Can you grab 6? I told her I could bring 2, and my back agreed to 2. She didn't answer. Silence can be a sentence too. Thanksgiving morning was blue and thin with cold. I loaded 2 pies, a big salad with whole cranberries, the 2 chairs, and the envelope. On the drive, I turned off a man on the radio who was shouting about gratitude like it was a sport and let the car do the talking. The street was a line of parked cars. I found a spot near the corner and made my 2 trips. Through the window, I saw Shannon moving plates, the way people move, picture frames, Brent coaxing cheese into looking expensive, and the kids looping the house like a storm. I kissed grandchildren, set the pies on the sideboard, and went to find my place card. The table was set like a photograph. At the head sat Shannon and Brent. Down the sides, Aunt Vi, Uncle Mark, my niece Tessa, and her new boyfriend who looks like he knows his way around an iron. My card, Elaine, was at the kitchen island next to Olive's. The island, not the table. I held the card. I didn't feel a speech rising. I felt a simple correction. I carried it to the table and slid it between Aunt Vi and Tessa. Shannon saw, and a small muscle near her eye jumped and then smoothed. "We were trying a different flow," she said, casual and careful at the same time. "It puts me in the picture," I said. "That's all." Brent breezed in with 2 bottles. "Crisis averted," he said, showing the labels like they were rescue equipment. "Neighbor had spare chairs. We're good." He grinned and saw me and added, "Mom, Elaine, did you get the wine?" "I brought pies and tea," I said. "Right," he said. "We'll make it work." He uses that sentence like duct tape. People poured in, stamped cold air off their shoes, found hooks and hugs, and the room warmed. We took our seats, and Shannon did a cheerful welcome. She thanked everyone for being here, talked about how much she loved the season, and said, "We went elegant this time." I waited for the part where she usually thanks me for the spread and realized that part only existed in my head. It had never been said out loud. Habits edit memory until you write something down. The turkey was pretty and timid on salt. The sides were polite. Conversation went around in thin streams the way it does when people are careful. Halfway through, Brent raised his glass and said, "A toast to Elaine, who has been the heart of our holidays for years." Couldn't do it without her. People murmured and lifted glasses because that's what you do. I said thank you, and then asked everyone to say what they'd brought so I could stop thanking ghosts. It took a moment. Then Aunt Vi lifted her dish and said, "Scalloped corn, real butter." Uncle Mark held up a bag of rolls and said, "These were warmed in the oven to disguise their past," and everyone laughed, and there was relief in the laughter. Shannon didn't name anything. Brent said, "We curated," and someone coughed in a way that could have been a laugh or a chair. After plates were cleared, the kids came in with the wishbone and were told to wait. Brent called me toward the sink with a look that meant, "Let's fix this in a corner." I stacked plates. He rinsed. He spoke low. "Sean's embarrassed you moved the card," he said. "I wanted to sit at the table," I said. "I'm not a garnish." He kept the smile on his face for the room and dropped his voice another inch. "We just wanted balance. The look matters." "I'm more interested in how we pay for the look," I said. He set a plate down harder than needed. "We're still digging out. 1 more year." "That's what we said last year," I said. "You like being the hero," he said. "Some people do." "I like being a mother," I said. "Heroes burn out." Shannon was at the doorway watching us with the expression of a person who knows when a pot is about to boil. "Please don't do this today," she said. "We have people here." I tried not doing it, I said. It kept happening. She stared at the floor, then the ceiling, then me. 2 minutes, she said. "Keep it short." I wiped my hands, took the envelope from my bag, and went back to the table. I didn't tap a glass. I didn't stand. I opened the paper and spoke in the same voice I use to read recipes. "This year, I'm changing how I help. If I bring dessert, I won't also buy the main and the wine. If someone forgets what they said they'd bring, we just do without. No one uses my card. If hosting is too much, we split it in advance. Thank the person who shopped and cooked before dessert. Going forward, we rotate houses so the cost and work are shared. That's all." I folded the paper and put it down. People looked at me and then at their plates, the way you look at a spot on a table when you're thinking. Aunt V lifted her glass in a small salute. Tessa's shoulders dropped a notch like someone had finally put down a box she'd been pretending wasn't heavy. Shannon flushed and tried to smile. "Was this necessary?" she asked. "I brought it to you before," I said. "It didn't land." Brent kept his tone smooth. "We're in a tight season?" "I know," I said. "I'm not asking for back pay. I'm asking for a clear plan." He nodded stiffly. "Fine, after dinner." "Now," I said, "then we can enjoy dessert without guessing." He looked around for allies and didn't find enough. Shannon looked at the faces of people who love her and then looked back at me. "Fine," she said. The word had all the air taken out of it. "We'll rotate. 1 dish and 1 drink per household. No surprise charges." She said it like she was reading off a board, and that was good enough for me. We did dessert. Brent poured coffee and not dessert wine. He made a joke about it, and no one felt the need to fix it by getting in a car. The wishbone broke in my hand. My granddaughter asked what I wished for. "A rule that doesn't need to be said again," I told her, and she made a face and said that wasn't a real wish. She prefers unicorns. I prefer chairs that hold. As people found their codes and thanked the right people this time, Shannon came to the kitchen with the big salad bowl and washed it without being asked. "I put your place card at the table because I was showing off," she said. "It was careless. I won't do it again." "Thank you," I said. "Let's decide together next time." She nodded, and for a second she looked like the girl who wore my mother's pearls to junior prom and cried when they snagged on a sweater. "Please don't read anything else tonight," she said. "I'm finished," I said. "We said enough." I carried my bag to the door. Brent stood there with a towel over his shoulder and that grin he puts on when he's trying to be easy. "Next year," he said, "no speeches. My house, my rules." "Your house, your menu, your budget," I said. "We already agreed." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. At home, I put the empty pie carrier on the counter and taped the little paper with the plan to the inside of a cabinet where only I will see it. I made tea and stood at the window. The porch chairs creaked when the wind moved through them. It used to sound like age. Tonight, it sounded like a house settling back into place. My phone buzzed with a number I didn't know. "Hi, this is Matt, Leah's husband. We can take Easter if you want to rotate. I can grill if someone tells me what not to burn. Thanks for making the day easier." I saved the number and the message because it is good to keep evidence that small things help. The next morning, I called a handyman and had the handrail put on the back steps. He patted it like a shoulder and said, "That'll hold." I paid him with no wobble in my stomach and put the paper in a folder labeled House. Not everything needs a story. Some things just need to be done. That afternoon, Shannon dropped by with apples and the kids. We peeled and talked. Before she left, she looked at the cabinet door where I'd taped the plan and asked if she could take a picture. "The magnet's bossy," she said, reading it. "Use what you have." "It's not wrong," I said. "Neither are you," she said, and hugged me in a way that measured where we were and decided it was good enough for now. That night, Brent texted, "Coffee next week? My treat." I said yes and told him to bring his calendar. He sent a laugh, but he'll bring it. I turned off the kitchen light, checked the back door twice, and let the quiet do what quiet does when the loud part of the day is over. Brent picked a cafe with chalkboard menus and too many plants. He was there before me, standing up when I walked in like we were at an interview. He'd already ordered 2 coffees. He slid one across, then sat back and tried a smile. "Thanks for meeting me," he said. "Shannon told me to keep this simple." "Simple is good," I said. "Simple sticks." He laid his phone on the table. I took a pen from my bag. He looked at it and shook his head a little, not unkindly. "You and your paper," he said. "Me and my paper," I said. "Let's write down what we can live with when we're tired." We started with dates. He talked about soccer schedules and a work trip in late spring. I suggested spreading the big days so nobody's kitchen had to do too much, too close together. He nodded. I wrote the plan in plain words: who hosts when, what the host covers, what everyone else brings. I didn't make a speech. I didn't turn it into a trial. We kept it the size of a kitchen note. "Let's put numbers to it," he said, surprising me. "A top number for the host, a smaller one for what people bring." "That helps," I said. We agreed to a sensible cap for the host and a modest limit for each household's contribution. If someone needed help, they'd say so a week ahead and the host would adjust. He added one more thing, almost sheepish. "No last-minute runs," he said. "That's my bad habit. I get excited and you've seen it." "You like a flourish," I said. "Use the energy to bring chairs that don't wobble." He laughed, and it sounded like relief. We added 2 lines that mattered to me. Nobody uses anyone else's card, and the person who spent money gets thanked out loud before dessert, not in a text later when the kitchen is cold. He took a picture of the paper. I folded it. He didn't reach for it. There are small ways a person shows you he's listening. Sometimes it's not grabbing what isn't his. About the other night, he said, watching his coffee. "I got defensive. I don't like being corrected in front of people. I know my face goes hot. I'm working on that." "I noticed," I said. "We're good?" he asked. "We're on the same page," I said, tapping the folded sheet. He raised his cup. "To boring clarity." I touched mine to his. "To boring clarity." That evening, Shannon posted the plan in the family chat. She didn't dress it up. She asked people to reply with one word. They did. Agree, agree, agree. Even Uncle Mark, who likes to turn everything into a joke, just wrote the word and a small aside about roles that made everyone groan in a friendly way. Shannon sent me a separate message after. "Thank you for keeping it simple." I wrote back that she could thank me later by labeling leftovers. She sent a picture of a marker on the counter. I saved it for no real reason except it felt like a hinge had turned. Christmas at V's always smells like butter and onions. She serves on paper plates with gold stars because she doesn't like to stand at her sink after 8. She's learned to be unapologetic about things that used to make her explain herself. As soon as I walked in, she handed me a dish towel and told me where to put my pie, then pointed at a spot beside her where the coffee maker lived. "Set your tea there," she said. "I'm not burning the good kettle for this crowd." "Understood," I said. Shannon arrived carrying a tray of vegetables and 3 dips, one of which was an alarming pink that turned out to be beets. She kissed my cheek and said she'd put my place card at the table. She didn't say why, and I didn't make her. Brent came with chairs that folded but didn't threaten to bite your fingers. He brought 2 bottles of dessert wine and held them up like a prop. Vi didn't even look at him. "Not on the list," she said, sliding a pan into the oven. "It's a nice touch," he said. "It's an extra bill," she said. He hesitated with his friendly smile and then turned and put the bottles back in his car. He came back without the smile, but with his hands empty, and that was better. We ate early because V believes in starting before children fray. The food was warm and honest, the kind that remembers to use salt. Halfway through, she lifted her glass and thanked people for what they brought. She asked each person to name their part so the thanks could land on the right person. It took half a minute, and it changed the air. It is harder to take something for granted once you've said who carried it up the steps. Brent leaned toward me and said, not loudly, that he liked this more than he expected. He liked the part where he didn't have to improvise a grocery run. "It leaves my brain free to talk to people," he said, as if he hadn't realized that was an option before. When it was time to go, Shannon packed food for me and wrote my name on the lid in her tidy hand. She told me she'd taped the plan to her fridge. "The kids know about it," she said. "They like rules. They know when they're done." In January, my property tax was due. I paid it and breathed through my nose like a person who doesn't have to choose between a bill and a repair. I called a handyman and had a second rail installed on the back steps. He tested it with his weight and said, "There. Now you won't have to think about falling while you're thinking about your groceries." I liked the way he put it. There are too many things we do with our hands while our minds are elsewhere. February went like February. On a Friday, Shannon called from the grocery aisle and asked if I could pick up a cake for Tessa's birthday dinner because she'd forgotten to order. I told her I could pick up anything she called in and paid for, and she said right, and did it. I felt oddly calm walking out of the bakery with a cake I hadn't paid for. It wasn't about $15. It was about not adding water to a crack. April was my month to host. I chose a menu I could make with a single list and one set of pans, roast chicken, a big salad, bread, and pie. I sent a note to the group a week in advance, plain and short, with the jobs divided. Everyone answered that they had it covered. The weather cooperated. We opened the window an inch, and the house felt like it was airing out old arguments without having to talk about them. My grandson asked why I write things down. I told him it keeps me from making up stories when I'm tired. He nodded like a foreman. Later, he brought me a piece of paper with the word May printed carefully at the top and a drawing of a cake under it so no one would forget his birthday. He assigned tasks in block letters and then grinned like he'd built something. I told him he had. In May, an envelope without a return address showed up in my mailbox. Inside was a gift card to the hardware store and a note in square letters telling me to use it for the next thing I fixed before it broke. I knew it was from Vi, because only she writes like she's labeling a box for the attic. I used it to buy new smoke alarms. Brent installed them after work with a screwdriver and the steady hum of a man who wants to be useful. He told me he had unfollowed some accounts that made him want things he didn't need. "I swapped them for dogs and people cooking," he said. "I like the way that feels." July's cookout was at Tessa's. The day before, Shannon texted to ask if I could grab ice, extra chairs, and paper plates on my way. I told her I could bring ice, and I could bring 2 chairs, and paper plates belonged to the host. She wrote back that she'd forgotten herself for a second and that she had it. At the cookout, Tessa had hung a handwritten note by the condiments that said, "Ask before you add." Brent grilled, then sat down and ate his burger without popping up again to fix the world. Tessa gave me a cold cloth for my neck. Vi waved a fan like a judge deciding in my favor. September came with school forms and early dark. Shannon called from the bread aisle to tell me she and Brent were starting a list for Thanksgiving. She read it and asked if it sounded reasonable. It didn't. She said she wanted to use Tom's old carving knife. I wrapped it in a towel and put it near the door with a note to remind us to send it home and to get it back. I like tools that do their job and return to their drawer. On the Sunday before Thanksgiving, she stopped by with the kids and a small stack of place cards. She asked if we could fill in names together so she wouldn't make a mess of the seating again without knowing it. We wrote them at my table with the afternoon sliding down the wall. She put mine between Vi and Tessa. She stuck it in the middle of the stack so it would come out first. "Belt and suspenders," she said. I told her I'm a fan of both. This year the sky was pale and polite. I parked in their driveway because Brent had left a space. Inside, the table looked like it had been set by people who planned to eat in real time instead of posing for a picture. The place cards were out, including mine, at the table where anyone could see me. Shannon took the tea to the stove without me having to ask her to put it somewhere safe. Brent had a towel over his shoulder and the good kind of grin, the kind that knows when to stand back. He said we were on time and under budget and that he was embarrassed to say how good that felt. We ate, we thanked people out loud the way we now do, and it didn't take long and it did a lot. At one point, Brent looked toward the door like he might head out for one more thing. He stayed. He put his hand on the back of his chair like he was tethering himself. Shannon noticed and tapped his wrist lightly. He smiled and let his hand fall. After dinner, we washed 2 of the pans because that's what needed doing and left the rest for later. He dried while I stacked. He said last year he thought I made him look small. He said he realized later he'd already done that himself and that I had just turned the lights on. I didn't rush to fill the space after that sentence. He didn't either. Sometimes people don't actually need your words so much as your face not changing. Shannon brought me the knife wrapped in the towel and handed it over like a trust exercise. She said she had wanted to keep it and liked more that she could ask for it again. We stood there in the doorway a moment while the house did the soft busy that houses do after a meal, and then I put the knife in my bag and went to find my coat. At home, I slid the knife back where it lives. I made a cup of tea and sat in Tom's chair and listened to the quiet as if it were a thing I could hold. I didn't add up anything. I didn't write a speech. I opened my small notebook and wrote a line I could read to myself later without needing to explain it to anybody. We set a plan. We followed it. It helped. The next afternoon, I stopped by the community center. Ruth asked how it went without turning her head. I told her it went like a normal family day. She smiled in a way that said, "That's the goal people forget." I copied our 6 lines onto an index card and pinned it to the board near the pantry sign-up sheets. A man in a baseball cap took a picture and said his sister needed it. I told him to send it and keep one for himself. He laughed and took a second photo. December came around again. Vi called to say she had the menu and nobody argue with her gravy. Shannon sent me a photo of a simple wreath she'd made with clippings from the yard. Brent texted to ask if I liked a particular coffee from the cafe with too many plants. I told him the plain kind is fine. He said he knew that already and was checking anyway. Nothing explosive happened. We didn't all become saints. There were still small frictions, a dish that didn't bake all the way through, a late arrival that held up serving, a kid who melted down about pants that suddenly itched. But nobody ran a card that wasn't theirs. Nobody stood at the sink pretending not to be angry. Nobody ate in the kitchen while pretending it was better for the flow. Shannon and I have a new habit. If one of us starts drifting back to the old way, the other points at the cabinet where the plan lives and then pours tea. We read it once softly and ask what slipped. Usually it's something small, an extra dish added without asking, a short list that didn't include plates, a thank you said in a group text instead of to a face. Small things fix quickly if you catch them before they gather friends. Near the end of the month, we met at the same cafe where Brent and I first drew the plan. He brought a paper calendar and a pen. He didn't make a show of either. We blocked out the next year's big days and who takes what. He said he'd stopped adding things just to feel useful and started calling ahead to be useful. He said it felt different in his body. People underestimate how much their bodies know about money and promises. On the way home, I stopped at the bakery and bought 2 rolls for myself. I warmed them and ate them with butter that didn't have to be special to be good. I washed the dish and put it away and checked the back door twice and stood at the window for a minute before I turned out the light. If someone asked for a moral, I wouldn't print it on a wall. I'd say it in a kitchen where people can hear themselves. Put the plan in words you can carry in your pocket. Say it once and then cook. Thank the person who paid where they can see your face. If you need to say no, say it softly and early. Then make tea. The day will feel ordinary instead of staged, and ordinary is what you remember when you're washing the plates tomorrow and trying not to make a speech to the sponge. That's how it is now. Not perfect, not delicate, not a story that needs a spotlight. The work is spread out. The table feels less like a test. I leave with my hands empty and my heart not buzzing. And when I get home, the porch chair creaks under me like something that has carried a person all day and is glad to do one more job without being asked to sing about it.